Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we're taking a look at a knife that actually I wanted for quite a while. I had heard so many good things about it. A number of you guys had commented on it. And in fact, what I did when I had a couple of recommendations from you, and this is, you can imagine this is how you do it. Someone says, "Hey, have you checked out the Civivi Brazen?" And I'm like, "Not really." So what do? You Google it. So I did that, and I found out that virtually all the every other knife reviewer out there also just loves this thing. So I was like, man, I really should get one. Anyway, about that time, Integrity Knives got in touch with me and said, "Hey, would you like to do a bit of a collaboration?" They're from Brantford, where actually my wife and I lived when I first got married. I was born in the Brantford Hospital, and so that kind of sucked me in. And of course, they were going to send a couple of knives, so I was like, "Hey, sure thing." The main one I think that they wanted to promote is the Integrity Knives exclusive Malia, which is a really cool little knife. It's the Malia, which is already quite popular for CJRB, only it's done with micarta and S35 VN. So pretty cool little knife, and they wanted to promote that. They also wanted to, they're like, we'll send you something else. So this was the other knife that they sent. And, I was glad they did because it was a knife that a number of you guys wanted to see. I wanted to check it out. And so I have been fortunate to be able to use this, carry this, get to know this knife quite well over the last couple of months. And actually, I've been meaning to get to this review, and it's just been crazy busy. I know, by the way, there's been a lull in videos. I just have a bunch of stuff going on. You guys know that I do a little bit of construction stuff on the side. And of course, as the weather turns, everyone decides that their job needed to be done yesterday. And so all of a sudden it gets busy. Same thing happens pretty much every year. Anyway, so that has reduced the number of videos I'm able to get out there. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this a little bit. By the way, I should point out there is a Tanto variant available. To me, I don't know, I prefer just the plain old drop point. One of the things that is nice about this knife is just that it's really sort of a nice, calm and a little bit vanilla everyday carry type of folder. And the Tanto, in fact, sort of takes some of that away. So I wanted the drop point version. Integrity Knives was kind enough to send it over. By the way, I will put a link to Integrity Knives down in the description box. The other thing that I thought was appealing about this, and part of the reason I think these are so popular, they sell out, like you can't hardly buy one. And part of the reason I think that is because they land in a really good sort of sweet spot. It's like a full size folder that feels smaller than it is, or it's a small folder that feels bigger than it is. I'm not sure which one exactly, but I will say that whether you tend to like larger stuff or whether you tend to like smaller stuff, in terms of knife size, you will probably enjoy this. It just is in a really nice sweet spot. So it's big enough to satisfy me. And you guys know I definitely prefer the larger knives out there, but it's not crazy big, so that someone who likes smaller stuff is not going to be too put off by it. Let's thinking of that, let's go ahead and hit on the size there. This is just under 8 inches overall, 3 7/16 on the blade, just over 4.5 inches when closed. All right, like not even a 1/16 of an inch over. The grip area is only 3.5 inches. I guess that might be the one drawback. It's completely fine for me, but for some people that 3.5 inches, if you have really big hands, I take like a size large glove. If your hands are much bigger than that, it may be a little cramped for you. And 3.7 ounces. I look at this and I kind of see, a Spyderco Tenacious, a bunch of, there's a bunch of knives out there that are sort of just, sort of plain Jane, broadly appealing knives. And this is sort of Civivi's offering in that segment. The thing is, this is better than a lot of those other options because the steel is better and the action is more enjoyable than most things you're going to find at this price point. So very easy to carry, big enough to handle most EDC tasks pretty darn well, and yet small enough that I don't think it's going to be off-putting to anyone who doesn't like something to be too big. All right, let's talk a little bit about the blade because that is something that I do enjoy. All right, we've got a bead blast here that I'm not in love with. I tend to prefer satin, but everything else about this blade I really like. So it's a flat grind, thinnish stock, and so, you know, it's not a hollow grind. I do prefer that a little, but it's only 20 thousandths at the edge, so this cuts really, really nicely. The bead blast, the blasted finish does hold up pretty well. You know, it's not going to show a lot of wear. The reason I tend to not like them as much as satin, one, I really like the look of satin grind lines. Number two, you know, a knife that's satin, if you scratch it or ding the blade up, it doesn't really matter because it's already shiny steel, right? So any kind of damage isn't really noticeable. We do have a flat grind. I think I mentioned that already. Nice top swedge up here, and a pretty decent job on the sharpening choil as well. I think I already mentioned these are available in a Tanto blade. Just in case I didn't already say that, I'll mention it now. It's 20 thousandths behind the edge. It's 115 thousandths stock. And so for me, all of those numbers kind of come together to be a pretty nice standard size EDC type of knife, right? For something that I'm going to carry in the office, or, you know, when I'm walking the dog or whatever, this is perfect, right? It doesn't need to be some big tactical beast. It doesn't need to be like for outdoor survival or something like that. It's just kind of big enough, thick enough to inspire enough confidence that I don't feel worried about it, but it's also slim enough and light enough that it's easy to carry, and it slices pretty darn well. All right, so I think the blade is nicely balanced. Moving on to the action. The action is exceptional on this. So really, really drop shutty action. Nice snappy detent, so it flips out with authority. The thumb stud works really well. And this is, you know, they've done a great job with this. I can't tell you how many knives I have handled where the flipper tab works fine, but the thumb studs are, it's the detent's too stiff for thumb studs, or vice versa. It's a softer detent, so the thumb studs work okay, but the flipper, you can't load it enough to get a solid deployment. This is just perfect. Both deployment methods work extremely well. And look, you have to say at this point, Civivi, you know, whatever they may do wrong, they definitely do actions right. Okay, they do a really nice job. So we've got the ceramic bearing, flipper tab, thumb stud, deployment. All of them work really, really well. This is a very, very enjoyable knife. It's definitely one you're going to want to fidget with on the couch. The other nice thing about this, while we're talking about the action, is that the lock bar is really accessible. It's easy to get your hands on. You don't need to think about it. It just does what you want it to do. And so to me, those are the big things, right? Does the knife deploy when I want it to deploy? Does it close when I want it to close? And yeah, it does both of those things really, really nicely and enjoyably. So now that we've commented on that, and a big surprise, right, guys? It's a Civivi, so we're pretty much used to Civivi having great action. Finally, let's talk a little bit about the handle. It's G10, nice, finely textured stainless steel liners. Pretty comfortable in hand. It's not, you know, I've said this is sort of a lighter use EDC knife. It's a little small in general, so that does mean you don't have a ton of real estate, but it's certainly big enough for me to get 4 fingers on. And so I have no complaints about the comfort in hand. All right, deep carry clip with flush screws. That's nice to see. G10 backspacer. All right, again, fine texture on the G10 there. This one happens to be the sort of, I don't know what you call this color, burgundy, I guess it would be close to what it is. It's available in a bunch of other colors as well. And I think you can get a black blade in this, in terms of, you know, I know that's not handle related, but there you go. And so yeah, the handle is pretty nice. Is it a little vanilla? Sure it is, but again, I think that's the appeal here. This is sort of a broad market appeal type knife, and I think they've done a really, really good job of that. Let's do a couple of comparisons. I don't have a lot of the knives that I would normally compare to this, but I've got the ones that matter, right? So here we have the cold steel Formax. I can't quite fit it all in frame, but most of you will know that this is a favorite knife of mine. And yeah, surprisingly, it's not as big as a Formax. So that's good. That means it's a little smaller, a little easier to carry than a Formax. The other knife I've got with me today, which I showed you a minute ago, is the CJRB Malia. And again, It's not as small as the Malia. It's a bit bigger than the Malia, which means it's, to me, a little nicer for an EDC blade, for a single blade. This I would carry maybe as a backup in a back pocket or something. I wouldn't want it to be my one and only knife. This I feel fine with it being the only knife I'm carrying on a given day. And again, I adjust my carry based on what I'm going to be doing that day. So if I'm just going to be in the office, this is going to be fine. All right. And so I think we've covered just about everything, and I can give you my overall thoughts on this. I think this is a really, really well done knife. It's easy to carry, it's easy to use, it's easy to afford. The materials are pretty decent, especially when you compare this. I think these are like $40, $42, $45, something like that. And so when you compare this to other knives in that category, things like, I don't know, Steel Will has a few, there's other Civivis, the, Rat Model 1, let's say, Spyderco Tenacious, some of that kind of stuff. You're not usually going to get 14C28N steel. You may or may not get G10. You're definitely not going to get an action as good as this on most other options. So this is, I think, a really, really nice offering. It's budget friendly, and it gives you a lot of joy. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on the Civivi Brazen. Is it my favorite Civivi? No, that distinction still belongs to the Dogma, but it's pretty darn good. Go over to Integrity Knives, check out what they've got in stock, give them a look. Big thank you to Integrity Knives for sending this along. Thanks to my other sponsors as well. If you look down in the description box, keep scrolling past Integrity Knives, you'll see White Mountain Knives and Southern Edge Knife Works there. Thank you to them as well. Go check them out. That does help the channel. We will talk to you soon.